Blood stained the floorboards of the tiny church as Jackson Miller fought for each ragged breath. His once strong body now broken and failing. Zara O'Connor knelt beside him, her trembling hands pressed against the bullet wound in his chest, her white dress turning crimson as she whispered prayers to a God she wasn't sure still listened. The small mining town of Silver Creek, Colorado Territory, 1875, had never seen violence like this until today. Zara had been sweeping the church steps when she heard the gunshots, followed by the sound of hooves thundering away. When she found him, the stranger, this dying cowboy, dragged himself to the threshold of her father's church. She knew her life would never be the same. "Please," Zara whispered, her voice cracking as she pressed harder against his wound. "Please don't die." Jackson's eyes, the color of the summer sky, fluttered open briefly. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth as he tried to speak, but only a gurgled cough escaped. His fingers, strong, calloused hands that had known hard work, weakly brushed against hers. "I need to get help," Zara said, making to stand, but his grip suddenly tightened on her wrist. "No time," he managed. "They'll come back." Zara's heart pounded against her ribs. The man was right. Whoever shot him might return to finish what they started. Her father was away visiting a neighboring town, and the doctor lived on the far side of Silver Creek. There was no one else to help. "What's your name?" she asked, trying to keep him conscious. "Jackson Miller," he gasped, his face contorting in pain. "I'm Zara O'Connor." His eyes focused on her face for a moment, as if memorizing her features. "Pretty name for an angel." Zara felt tears well in her eyes. This man was dying, and there was nothing she could do except offer comfort. She'd seen death before her mother, 3 years ago, consumed by fever, but never like this. Never so violent, so sudden. "I need to move you," she said. "Inside the church. Can you help me? Just a little?" Jackson nodded weakly. With strength born of desperation, Zara managed to help him drag himself fully inside the church. Blood trailed across the wooden floor as she positioned him near the altar. His breathing grew more labored with each passing minute. "I'll get water, clean bandages," she said, her mind racing. "Too late for that," Jackson whispered. "Just stay." Zara looked into his eyes and saw acceptance there, along with something else: regret. She couldn't let him die, not here, not like this. "No," she said firmly. "You're not dying today, Jackson Miller." She tore a strip from her petticoat and pressed it against his wound. The bullet had entered just below his left shoulder, dangerously close to his heart. She had no medical training beyond basic nursing skills learned from her mother, but she knew enough to recognize a mortal wound. With nothing left to do but pray, Zara closed her eyes and began to whisper the words her father had taught her. Words of hope, of healing, of faith in something greater than human understanding. Her tears fell onto Jackson's chest as she prayed, mingling with his blood. "Our Father, who art in heaven," she began, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Please, Lord, spare this man. Guide my hands. Give me strength to save him." Outside, thunder rumbled, a summer storm approaching. The light through the stained glass windows cast colored shadows across Jackson's pale face. His breathing slowed, each inhale a struggle, each exhale possibly his last. Zara continued praying, one hand pressing on his wound, the other clutching his increasingly cold fingers. She prayed until her voice grew hoarse, until the storm outside broke and rain pelted the church roof. She prayed as if her own life depended on it. Hours passed. The storm raged on, mirroring the battle for life happening inside the small church. Zara's back ached from her awkward position, but she dared not move. Jackson had fallen unconscious, his breathing so shallow she had to place her cheek near his mouth to feel it. Please, she whispered again, not sure who she was pleading with anymore, God or Jackson. Please stay with me. As darkness fell, Zara lit candles around them, creating a circle of warm light. She cleaned his face with a damp cloth, wiping away the blood and sweat. In the candlelight, she saw that he was handsome, perhaps 30 years old, with a strong jaw covered in stubble, and lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often. "Who are you, Jackson Miller?" she whispered. "Who did this to you? Who waits for you somewhere?" The night deepened. Zara sang him softly, both to comfort Jackson and to keep herself awake. She changed the blood-soaked cloths on his wound, cleaned him as best she could, and continued praying. Occasionally, his eyelids would flutter, or his fingers would twitch against hers, giving her hope. Near dawn, when the candles had burned low and Zara's voice had reduced to a whisper, Jackson's eyes suddenly opened. "Angel," he murmured, his voice weak but clearer than before. Zara gasped, leaning closer. "Jackson? Can you hear me?" "I hear your prayers," he said, each word a struggle. "All night. Your voice brought me back." Fresh tears spilled down Zara's cheeks. "Don't talk. Save your strength." His hand moved slightly, reaching for hers. "The men who shot me. Donovan gang. They're after." "Shoo," Zara soothed. "Tell me later. You need to rest." Jackson's eyes held hers for a long moment before closing again. But this time his breathing seemed steadier, less labored. Zara pressed her fingers to his neck and felt his pulse weak but regular. The impossible was happening. Jackson Miller was not dying, at least not immediately. When the first light of dawn broke through the windows, Zara heard hoofbeats approaching the church. Her heart seized with fear. Had the men who shot Jackson returned? She quickly blew out the remaining candles and moved to the window, peering cautiously outside. Relief flooded her when she recognized Dr. Samuel Warren's buggy, followed by her father's horse. They had returned early from their trip. Zara rushed to the door, waving frantically. "Father! Dr. Warren! Please hurry!" she called. Reverend Patrick O'Connor, a tall man with graying hair and kind eyes, dismounted quickly. "Zara, what's happened? Is that blood on your dress?" "There's a man, Father. He's been shot. I've been with him all night. I thought he would die, but he's holding on." Dr. Warren, a gruff man in his 60s with a reputation as the best physician in 3 counties, grabbed his medical bag. "Move aside, girl. Let me see him." They followed Zara into the church. Her father gasped when he saw the blood trail and the man lying near the altar. "Good heavens, Zara! What happened here?" "He dragged himself to our door yesterday, after I heard gunshots," she explained quickly. "He said his name is Jackson Miller. He mentioned the Donovan gang before he lost consciousness again." Dr. Warren was already kneeling beside Jackson, examining the wound with practiced hands. "The bullet's still in there. It needs to come out. Can you save him?" Zara asked, her voice small. "Dr. Warren glanced at her, his expression softening slightly. "You've done well, Miss O'Connor. Your efforts kept him alive through the night. That's no small thing." He turned to her father. "Reverend, I'll need hot water, clean cloths, and your strongest whiskey if you have it." As her father hurried to gather the supplies, Dr. Warren looked more carefully at Zara. "You stayed with him all night, praying?" She nodded, suddenly aware of her blood-stained dress, her disheveled hair, her exhaustion. "I couldn't leave him." "Well, your prayers seem to have been answered, at least partially. By all rights, this man should be dead." The doctor shook his head in wonder. "The bullet missed his heart by less than an inch. It's lodged against his shoulder blade." For the next hour, Zara assisted the doctor as he removed the bullet from Jackson's shoulder. The cowboy remained mercifully unconscious throughout the procedure, though occasionally he would moan or his body would tense with pain. "He's young and strong," Dr. Warren said as he stitched the wound closed. "If infection doesn't set in, he has a chance." "Thank you, doctor," Zara said fervently. Dr. Warren packed his instruments. "He can't be moved yet, not for at least a week, and he'll need constant care." "He can stay here," Reverend O'Connor said. "We have the small room behind the church." Zara nodded gratefully. "I'll care for him, Father." Her father studied her face for a long moment. "You need rest first, daughter. You look ready to collapse. But no arguments. I'll sit with Mr. Miller while you sleep." Reluctantly, Zara agreed. After cleaning herself and changing her dress, she fell into an exhausted sleep in their small home adjacent to the church. When she awoke, the sun was already setting. She had slept the entire day away. She hurried back to the church, where she found her father sitting beside Jackson, reading from the Bible. "How is he?" she asked anxiously. "Fever set in a few hours ago," her father said, his face grave. "Dr. Warren came back to check on him and said the next day or two will be critical." Zara moved to Jackson's side. His face was flushed with fever, his breathing rapid. She placed a hand on his forehead and felt the heat radiating from his skin. "I'll take over now, Father," she said. "You should rest." "Zara," he began, concern evident in his voice. "Please, Father, I need to do this." Something in her tone made him pause. After a moment, he nodded. "Call me if there's any change. And Zara, be careful with your heart. We know nothing about this man." After her father left, Zara bathed Jackson's face with cool water, trying to bring down his fever. In his delirium, he murmured names she didn't recognize: James, Sarah, Pa, and occasionally he would jerk awake, eyes wide with fear, before slipping back into fevered dreams. Through the night, Zara tended to him, changing the dressings on his wound as Dr. Warren had shown her, spooning broth between his lips when he was lucid enough to swallow. And always she prayed. By morning, Jackson's fever had broken. Zara, dozing in a chair beside him, awoke to find him watching her with clear blue eyes. "You're still here," he said, his voice rough but stronger. "Where else would I be?" she replied with a small smile. "Most people would have left a stranger to die. I'm not most people." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "No, Miss O'Connor, you certainly are not." Over the next week, Jackson's strength gradually returned. Zara learned that he was 32 years old, a former Texas Ranger who now worked as a hired gun, though he emphasized he only took jobs that aligned with his sense of justice. The men who shot him, the notorious Donovan gang, had ambushed him after he'd been hired to track them down for robbing a stagecoach and killing the driver. "They thought they killed me," he said one afternoon as Zara changed his bandages. "They'll be mighty surprised when they learn otherwise." "You're not going after them," Zara said sharply. It wasn't a question. Jackson's expression hardened. "They're dangerous men, Miss O'Connor. They've killed before and will kill again. And you nearly died," she reminded him. "You're in no condition to chase criminals. When I'm healed, when you're healed, you should consider a different line of work," she interrupted. "One less likely to end with you bleeding on a church floor." Jackson fell silent, studying her face. "You've got spirit, I'll give you that." As the days passed, Zara found herself increasingly drawn to Jackson Miller. He was unlike any man she'd met in Silver Creek, educated, well-spoken, with a dry wit that often made her laugh. He treated her with a respect that few men showed women in the territories, listening to her opinions and engaging her in conversations about books they had both read. By the second week, Jackson was strong enough to sit up and take short walks around the room. Reverend O'Connor, initially wary of the gunmen in their church, gradually warmed to him as he observed Jackson's respectful behavior and genuine gratitude. "Your daughter saved my life," Jackson told the Reverend one evening when the three of them shared a meal. "I'll never forget that." "The Lord saved your life," Reverend O'Connor corrected gently. "Zara was merely his instrument." Jackson's eyes met Zara's across the table. "Then I'm doubly blessed." The tension in the air between them grew with each passing day. Zara found herself lingering in the room where Jackson recovered, bringing him books, sharing meals, telling him about her life in Silver Creek. She learned that he had lost his family to a fever when he was 20, that he had traveled extensively throughout the West, that he could quote Shakespeare and play the harmonica. What began as a nurse's care for her patient evolved into something deeper, more complicated. Zara caught herself thinking of Jackson at odd moments while gathering flowers for the church, while preparing meals, while lying in bed at night. She imagined his smile, the timbre of his voice, the way his hand felt when she helped him stand. "You're becoming attached," her father observed one morning as they prepared breakfast together. Zara's hands stilled. "He's a good man, father." "He's a gunman, Zara. A drifter. When he's healed, he'll move on. That's the nature of men like him." "You don't know that," she argued. But in her heart, she feared her father was right. Jackson, too, seemed aware of the growing connection between them. He began sharing more personal stories about his childhood in Texas, his time as a ranger, the people he'd helped and those he couldn't save. One evening, when Zara was reading to him from a volume of Tennyson's poetry, he reached out and took her hand. "I've never met anyone like you, Zara O'Connor," he said softly. Zara's heart stuttered in her chest. "Nor I you, Jackson Miller. When I rode into Silver Creek, I was tracking the Donovan gang. I never expected." He paused, searching for words. "I never expected you." Before she could respond, they heard footsteps approaching her father, returning from evening prayers. Jackson released her hand, but his eyes held hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. That night, Zara couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed every conversation, every look, every moment shared with Jackson. She was 23 years old, and while she had received offers of courtship from several men in Silver Creek, she had never felt for any of them what she felt for Jackson. It was as if he had awakened something within her that had been dormant, waiting. But her father's warning echoed in her mind. Jackson was healing quickly now. Soon, he would be strong enough to leave to continue his dangerous work. And what then? Would he ask her to wait for him? Would he stay in Silver Creek? Or would he simply thank her for saving his life and ride away, leaving her with nothing but memories? The next morning, Zara entered the church to find Jackson standing at the altar, examining the simple wooden cross that hung there. He wore his own clothes, now jeans, a blue cotton shirt, and his boots, which her father had cleaned and repaired. "Good morning," she said, trying to sound normal despite the tumult in her heart. Jackson turned, and the smile that lit his face sent warmth spreading through her. "Good morning, Zara. You seem stronger today." "I am," he confirmed. "Thanks to you." Zara set down the breakfast tray she had brought. "Dr. Warren deserves the credit for removing the bullet." "Dr. Warren didn't stay up all night praying over me," Jackson countered, moving closer to her. "Dr. Warren didn't read to me, or make me laugh, or remind me why life is worth fighting for." Zara's cheeks grew warm under his steady gaze. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Jackson said firmly. "Anyone would not have." He reached for her hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she let him take it. His palm was warm and calloused against hers. "Zara, I need to tell you something." Her heart raced. "Yes. The Donovan gang, they're still out there. And they have something that belongs to me." Whatever Zara had expected him to say, it wasn't this. She tried to hide her disappointment. Something valuable? Not in the way you're thinking, Jackson sighed. Before they shot me, I managed to take something from them, evidence of their crimes, including the robbery that left that stagecoach driver dead. Names, dates, locations, everything the law would need to bring them to justice. I hid it before I made it to the church. And you want to recover it? Zara said, understanding dawning. That's why you've been so focused on regaining your strength. Partly, Jackson admitted, but there's more to it than that. He took a deep breath. Zara, meeting you has changed everything for me. For years, I've been drifting from town to town, taking jobs, living by my gun. I told myself I was serving justice, but the truth is, I was running from having roots, from caring too deeply about anyone or anything. Hope flickered in Zara's chest. And now I find myself thinking about a future, a real future in one place, with, he paused, as if gathering courage. With you, if you'd consider it. Zara stared at him, scarcely believing what she was hearing. Jackson, I know it's sudden, he hurried on. I know your father has concerns about me, and rightly so. My past isn't something I'm proud of. But I swear to you, Zara, if you give me a chance, I'll prove myself worthy of your trust. Zara's mind whirled with emotions: joy, confusion, hope, fear. What are you saying, exactly? Jackson took both her hands in his. I'm saying that I care for you, deeply, more than I thought possible after such a short time. And I'm asking if you might feel something for me too. I do, Zara whispered, unable to deny the truth any longer. I care for you too, Jackson. But my father, I'll speak with him, Jackson promised. I'll tell him my intentions, my plans to change my life. And the Donovan gang? The evidence. Jackson's expression grew serious. That's the complication. I need to retrieve that evidence and get it to the marshal in Denver. It's the right thing to do. Those men need to face justice for what they've done. But after that, I'm done with that life. I swear it. Zara searched his face, looking for any sign of deception. All she saw was earnest determination. When do you plan to go? Tomorrow, he said. I'm strong enough now, and I can't risk waiting longer. The gang could return to the area any day. Fear clutched at Zara's heart. It's too dangerous. What if they find you again? I'll be careful, Jackson assured her. I know these men, their patterns. I'll retrieve the evidence and be back before sundown. And if you're not? Jackson hesitated, then reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object, a silver pocket watch. This was my father's, he said, pressing it into her palm. The only thing of value I own. I'll come back for it, Zara. I promise. Zara closed her fingers around the watch, feeling its weight, its significance. I'll hold you to that promise, Jackson Miller. That evening, Zara sat with her father in their small home, gathering her courage to tell him about Jackson's intentions. To her surprise, Reverend O'Connor spoke first. Mr. Miller came to see me today, he said, setting aside his Bible. Zara's heart jumped. He did. Yes. He asked for my blessing to court you. And Zara could barely breathe. Her father sighed heavily. I told him that while I appreciate his honesty and his apparent change of heart, I have reservations. A man doesn't change his nature overnight, Zara. It hasn't been overnight, she argued. You've seen how he is, father. His kindness, his respect, his intelligence. I've also seen his gun belt, his scars, the hardness in his eyes when he speaks of certain things. Reverend O'Connor reached across the table and took her hand. Zara, your mother and I raised you to see the good in people. It's one of your finest qualities. But sometimes, that goodness in you makes you blind to the realities of this harsh world. I'm not blind to who Jackson is, Zara insisted. I know his past, but I also know he wants to change, to build a different life. And you believe him? Yes, Zara said without hesitation. I do. Her father studied her face. You love him. It wasn't a question, but Zara answered anyway. Yes. After just 3 weeks? Sometimes it doesn't take long to know, Zara said softly. Didn't you tell me you knew you loved Mother the first time you saw her? A small smile touched her father's lips. I did at that. He was quiet for a long moment. He told me he plans to retrieve some evidence against the men who shot him, then take it to Denver. Yes, tomorrow. He promised to be back by sundown. And if he isn't? Zara touched the pocket watch she now wore on a chain around her neck. He gave me his word, Father. He'll return. Reverend O'Connor nodded slowly. Then we shall see, Zara. We shall see. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Zara helped Jackson prepare for his journey, packing food and fresh bandages, though he assured her he wouldn't need them. His strength had returned remarkably over the past week, though he still moved with caution, mindful of his healing wound. I'll be back before you know it, he told her as he prepared to mount the horse her father had borrowed from a neighbor. Zara gripped his arm. Be careful, Jackson. Please. He looked down at her, his blue eyes soft with an emotion that made her heart race. I have every reason to be careful now, don't I? Before she could respond, he bent down and brushed his lips against hers, their first kiss, brief but filled with promise. Then he swung into the saddle, wincing slightly at the pull on his wound. Jackson, Zara called as he turned the horse toward the trail. You have something that belongs to me now. He looked puzzled. What's that? My heart, she said simply. So you'd better bring it back safely. A smile lit up his face. Yes, madam, I surely will. Zara watched until he disappeared from sight, then touched the pocket watch hanging around her neck. The day stretched before her, endless with waiting. To keep herself occupied, Zara threw herself into her usual tasks, cleaning the church, arranging flowers for the Sunday service, helping her father prepare his sermon. But her mind remained fixed on Jackson, wondering where he was, if he was safe, if he would truly return as promised. The sun climbed high in the sky, then began its slow descent toward the western horizon. Zara found herself checking the watch frequently, counting the hours until sundown. Her father, noticing her distraction, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Faith, Zara, he reminded her. Have faith. As the afternoon waned, Zara sat on the church steps, her eyes fixed on the trail leading into town. Every distant sound made her heart leap with hope, only to sink again when it proved to be nothing. The sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Still, there was no sign of Jackson. Zara clutched the pocket watch, whispering prayers under her breath. He'll come, she told herself. He promised. Darkness fell. Zara lit a lantern and continued her vigil, despite her father's gentle suggestions that she come inside. The night grew cool, stars appearing one by one in the vast Colorado sky. Zara, her father said softly, coming to sit beside her. It's late. He could have been delayed, she insisted. The trail is rough. His wound might be troubling him. Or he might not be coming back. Zara shook her head fiercely. No, he gave me his word, Father. He wouldn't break it without reason. Another hour passed, then another. Finally, near midnight, Zara reluctantly allowed her father to lead her inside, though she left the lantern burning on the church steps, a beacon in the darkness. She slept fitfully, waking at every sound, rushing to the window to look outside. By dawn, her eyes were red from crying, her heart heavy with fear and growing doubt. Had Jackson Miller lied to her? Had all his talk of changing, of building a future with her, been nothing but empty words to ensure her care until he was strong enough to leave? Zara refused to believe it. Something had happened to him, something that prevented his return. He was in trouble, perhaps injured again, or worse. "I'm going to look for him," she announced at breakfast. Her father set down his coffee cup. "Zara, be reasonable. You have no idea where he went." He mentioned an abandoned mine about 5 miles east of town. "That's where he hid the evidence. And if the Donovan gang found him there, what then?" Her father's voice was gentle but firm. "You could be riding into danger." "I can't just sit here wondering," Zara insisted. "I need to know what happened to him." Before her father could respond, they heard a commotion outside, voices shouting, horses whinnying. Zara rushed to the door and flung it open, her heart in her throat. For riders were approaching the church, 3 men surrounding a 4th who slumped in his saddle, hands tied to the pommel. Even from a distance, Zara recognized Jackson's blue shirt, now stained with fresh blood. "Father," she cried, "it's Jackson." Reverend O'Connor joined her at the door, his expression grim. "Those men with him, they're not bringing him back out of kindness, Zara." As the riders drew closer, Zara saw their faces clearly for the first time. Hard, cruel men with guns strapped to their hips. The man in the lead, a tall figure with a scar running down his cheek, grinned maliciously when he spotted Zara in the doorway. "Well, well," he called out. "Is this the little prayer warrior our friend here has been mumbling about?" Zara stepped forward, ignoring her father's warning hand. "What have you done to him?" "Nothing he didn't deserve," the scarred man replied. "Name's Donovan. I believe your friend here mentioned me." Terror clawed at Zara's throat, but she forced herself to stand tall. "Let him go." Donovan laughed, a harsh sound that sent chills down Zara's spine. "Oh, I don't think so. See, Miller here stole something from me, something important, and I aim to get it back." "I don't know what you're talking about," Zara said, though her hand instinctively moved to her throat, where Jackson's pocket watch hung beneath her dress. "No." Donovan dismounted, approaching her slowly. "That's funny, because Miller swears he didn't have it on him when we caught him sneaking around the old mine. Says he gave it to you for safekeeping." Behind him, Jackson raised his head with effort. "Zara," he called, his voice weak. "Run. Get inside." Donovan turned to look at Jackson, then back at Zara, his eyes narrowing. "Well now, isn't that sweet? He's trying to protect you." Reverend O'Connor stepped forward, placing himself between Zara and Donovan. "This is a house of God, sir. I must ask you to conduct your business elsewhere." "Oh, we're conducting it right here, preacher," Donovan said, his hand moving to his gun. "Either the girl gives me what Miller stole, or things are going to get mighty unpleasant." Zara glanced at Jackson, saw the pain and fear in his eyes, not for himself, but for her. She made a split-second decision. "I have what you're looking for," she said clearly, "but you have to let him go first." "Zara, no," Jackson shouted, struggling against his bonds. Donovan smiled, revealing tobacco-stained teeth. "That's not how this works, sweetheart. You give me what I want, then maybe, just maybe, I let your cowboy live." Before Zara could respond, a new voice called out from down the street. "Drop your weapons, Donovan. You're surrounded." All heads turned to see Marshal Nathan Cooper striding toward them, flanked by 6 armed men, Silver Creek's hastily assembled posse. Donovan cursed, his hand hovering over his gun. "This doesn't concern you, Marshal. 3 wanted criminals threatening a preacher and his daughter in my town? I'd say that concerns me plenty," Cooper replied, his rifle trained on Donovan. For a tense moment, Zara thought Donovan would draw, starting a bloodbath right there on the church steps. Instead, he slowly raised his hands, motioning for his men to do the same. "This isn't over," he snarled at Zara. As the marshal's men disarmed and restrained the Donovan gang, Zara rushed to Jackson, helping him down from the horse. He collapsed against her, his strength gone. "How did the marshal know?" he whispered as she lowered him to sit on the church steps. "I don't know," Zara admitted, examining his injuries. He had a nasty gash on his forehead, and his shoulder wound had reopened, but otherwise he seemed intact. Marshal Cooper approached them, holstering his pistol. "You must be Miller," he said. "Got a telegram from Denver yesterday saying you might be in these parts, tracking Donovan." Jackson nodded weakly. "The evidence is safe," Zara assured him, pulling the pocket watch from beneath her dress. She pressed a hidden catch on the side, and the back of the watch opened to reveal a tightly folded paper. "I found it last night. I hope you don't mind." Jackson stared at her in amazement. "How did you know?" "You kept touching it, checking it, and it doesn't actually work as a timepiece," she added with a small smile. "I noticed that right away." Marshal Cooper took the paper, unfolding it carefully. "Names, dates, locations, everything we need to put Donovan and his boys away for good. You did fine work, Miller." "Thank you, Marshal," Jackson said, his eyes never leaving Zara's face. "But I had help." Later, after Dr. Warren had tended to Jackson's new injuries and the Donovan gang had been locked securely in Silver Creek's small jail, Zara and Jackson sat together in the church, the evening light filtering through the stained glass windows. "I thought I'd lost you," Zara said softly, her hand in his. "For a while there, so did I," Jackson admitted. "Donovan caught me at the mine. Would have killed me right there if he hadn't realized the evidence was missing. He was bringing me back to town to force you to give it up." "How did he know I had it?" "He didn't, not for certain. But in my delirium, when they were beating me, I apparently kept muttering your name, saying you were praying for me." Jackson looked embarrassed. "Donovan put it together, figured I must have given it to you for safekeeping." Zara squeezed his hand. "You did." "I'm sorry I put you in danger," Jackson said, his voice thick with regret. "That's exactly what I never wanted to do." "You didn't put me in danger, Jackson. You trusted me with something important, and I kept it safe until it was needed." Jackson brought her hand to his lips, kissing it gently. "You're remarkable, Zara O'Connor. Does this mean you're staying?" she asked, the question that had been burning in her heart finally finding voice. "If you'll have me," Jackson replied. "Marshal Cooper offered me a deputy position. Said Silver Creek could use a man with my experience." Zara's heart soared. "And my father? Gave me his blessing, believe it or not. Said any man willing to face death to protect his daughter and bring criminals to justice had proven his worth." Jackson smiled wryly. "Though he did make me promise to attend church services regularly." "A small price to pay," Zara teased. "For a future with you?" "I'd pay any price," Jackson said, his voice low and serious. He leaned forward, cupping her face in his hands, and kissed her, not the brief, chaste kiss of the day before, but a deep, tender kiss that spoke of promises kept and a future together. When they finally parted, Zara rested her forehead against his. "You know, when I first saw you on the church floor, barely breathing, I never imagined this is where we'd end up." "I did," Jackson said softly. "The moment I heard your prayers, felt your tears on my face, I knew you were the one I'd been searching for all my life. I just had to stay alive long enough to tell you." 6 months later, on a crisp autumn day, Zara O'Connor became Zara Miller in the same small church where she had once prayed over a dying cowboy. The entire town of Silver Creek turned out for the wedding, including Marshal Cooper, who stood as Jackson's best man. Jackson, now Silver Creek's respected deputy marshal, watched with wonder as his bride walked down the aisle toward him, her father at her side. She wore a simple white dress with lace at the collar, and around her neck hung the silver pocket watch no longer containing evidence of crimes, but instead a small portrait of the two of them that a traveling photographer had taken. As Reverend O'Connor began the ceremony, Jackson's mind flashed back to that fateful day, the pain, the fear, the certainty that he was dying. And then Zara's voice, her prayers washing over him like a healing rain, giving him the strength to hold on. "Do you, Jackson Miller, take Zara O'Connor to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Reverend O'Connor asked. Jackson gazed into Zara's eyes, seeing in them the same compassion that had saved him, the same strength that had protected him, the same love that had transformed him. "I do," he said, his voice strong and clear, "with all my heart." After the ceremony, as they greeted well-wishers in the churchyard, Jackson pulled Zara aside for a moment of privacy. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pocket. He withdrew a small silver cross on a delicate chain, simple but beautiful in the autumn sunlight. "To replace the pocket watch," he explained as he fastened it around her neck. "A reminder not of danger and evidence, but of faith and answered prayers." Zara touched the cross, tears shimmering in her eyes. "It's perfect. Like you," Jackson murmured, drawing her close. "My angel who prayed me back to life." In the years that followed, Silver Creek grew and prospered. Jackson Miller eventually became town marshal when Cooper retired, known throughout the territory for his fairness and integrity. Zara continued her work at the church while also establishing a small school where she taught the town's children. They built a home on the edge of town, with a wide porch where they would sit in the evenings, watching the sunset paint the Colorado mountains in gold and purple. Their family grew, first a son they named Patrick after Zara's father, then a daughter, Hope, whose arrival nearly cost Zara her life until Jackson's desperate prayers were answered. Sometimes, when the house was quiet and the children asleep, Jackson would take Zara's hand and lead her to their porch swing. There, under the vast canopy of stars, he would tell her again the story of how they met, of a wounded cowboy and a praying woman, of second chances and faith rewarded, of love born in the shadow of death but destined to thrive in the light of life. And Zara would listen, her head on his shoulder, her hand in his, grateful for the bullet that brought them together and the prayers that kept them that way. In the small cemetery behind the church, years later, their headstones would stand side by side, bearing the simple epitaph, "Faith brought them together. Love kept them so." But that was far in the future. For now, there was life to be lived, love to be shared, and prayers of gratitude to be whispered in the quiet moments between dusk and dawn, prayers for the miracle that began when a cowboy lay on the floor, barely breathing, until she prayed over him.